First off, let's make this very clear. I am not making this video to overreact and freak out over an article whose sources can't technically be confirmed. No. Why someone would lie about all these sources to make an article like this doesn't make sense to me either. Maybe just for the clout, but I do highly doubt this article is BS, just to get that out of the way. I mostly believe the claims made by this person. Just how you choose to react to the information in here is where I see a lot of people differ, because based off of everything we have seen for this new Battlefield game, whether that's been the leaked gameplay, the development updates, the Battlefield Labs initiative itself, all has been extremely promising, and I do believe that at the very least, Battlefield 6 is going to be much better than 2042 on launch day. But we can't ignore the repeated patterns and red flags that we've been dealing with in the Battlefield franchise since Battlefield 5 when we see them. And that's what we're going to talk about in today's video. This is not as fun of a leak, that's for sure. An article by Samuel Axon titled, "What's Wrong with AAA Games? The Development of the New Battlefield Has Answers," dropped early this morning, July 2nd, and it's a pretty massive post, if I do say so myself. There is no way we will be able to cover absolutely every aspect of this article in today's video, so I'm going to post the link in the description below if you want to read it all in depth for yourself. But we're going to go over the main points, mainly how the single player aspect of the game seems to be extremely behind schedule. We're going to talk about what this could mean for the release of the game and the differing reactions I've seen online to this very post. In short, is this as bad as we think it is for Battlefield 6, or is this just the unfortunate reality of AAA development that all studios, whether related to EA or not, are currently struggling with, and Battlefield just got caught in the spotlight for this specific topic? Sit down, get comfy, grab a drink, like the video if you're enjoying the content around here, and let's get right into it. So first, the article starts off by mentioning the massive failure that was Battlefield 2042. And we're not going to focus on this, but it is important to keep in mind that the absolute disaster that was that game is what ultimately led to the restructuring of the leadership overseeing the Battlefield franchise and the creation of this new all-encompassing Battlefield Studios. This included bringing in Byron Bede as general manager of Battlefield, Vince Zampella as group general manager of Battlefield, which is just a fancy way of saying he's the head honcho. All right, guys, he oversees all of Battlefield and the multiple studios working on the game. And then Marcus Leto, who was the co-creator of Halo. Now keep this name in mind, it will be important later in the video. One of the first things that caught my eye in this article is the claim that internally EA's executive leadership set a player target for this new game, which is 100 million players, which sounds absolutely insane. Now, Battlefield 1, which was the most successful game in franchise history when it comes to numbers, only hit around 30 million plus. And if you're thinking like, dude, where the hell did they get this number of 100 million players? Well, they are directly comparing to other competitors such as Call of Duty and Fortnite, which, big surprise, of course EA wants a piece of the pie and wants Battlefield to be the game that hits those numbers for them. Now, really quick, 100 million does sound ridiculous. I highly doubt that's plausible for a Battlefield game, even if it's an absolute banger at launch. But also, Battlefield has never had a free-to-play element for their game. Yes, I guess you could say Battlefield Play for Free from 2011, but that's not really what we're talking about. Fortnite is a free-to-play game, and Call of Duty has Warzone, a standalone game, but directly tied to each new iteration of the franchise. It just kind of goes without saying that a free-to-play game is instantly more accessible to a larger amount of players versus a premium title. So although the 100 million player count number still sounds insane, don't get me wrong, I wouldn't be surprised if this new Battlefield game instantly hits the highest player count numbers ever in franchise history, solely due to the fact that there will be an emphasis on their new free-to-play battle royale and gauntlet game mode. But that kind of shows the absolute insane ambition they have with Battlefield 6. The article continues to talk about how this is the most expensive Battlefield ever, with an initial budget of 400 million, which, spoiler alert, they have already blown past due to the fact that apparently they had to bring in hundreds of developers to get things back on track, which leads us directly into the next major part of this article. Remember when I said to keep the name Marcus Leto in mind? Well, he was brought in to head Ridgeline Games, a Seattle-based studio in charge of creating a new single-player campaign and universe for the new Battlefield game. Now, this is kind of old news if you've been kind of keeping up to date with the franchise, but this studio was shut down in early 2024, with Marcus Leto leaving unceremoniously. I think the day he left, he tweeted some cryptic shit as well, which didn't impose confidence, I guess I can say. It seemed pretty messy. Apparently they were severely understaffed while also having to scale and build from scratch to catch up to the other established Battlefield studios. Allegedly, there was no proper check-ins and internal reviews on the progress they were making at this studio. And allegedly, what happened is one day there was eventually a progress review from top leadership at EA, and when they saw what they had been working on for 2 years, they were extremely dissatisfied and closed the studio. So with Ridgeline gone, EA brought in multiple studios such as Motive, Criterion, and even DICE to pick up the pieces and develop some of the single player. The problem was, and I'm going to quote from the article, there was essentially nothing left that Ridgeline had spent 2 years working on that they could pick up and build. So they had to redo essentially everything from scratch within the same constraints of when the game had to release. And this sounds very familiar. If you haven't seen my video talking about the development of 2042, definitely check that out, because the similarities are kind of terrifying. So in short, the single player aspect of the game allegedly is the only part of the game that has not yet reached alpha as of May 2025, which when you think about the fact that we have yet to see a reveal for this new game, if this is true, it's all starting to make a little bit more sense now, right? Because when games have a single player campaign, it's usually shown off first during the reveal. And I know Battlefield is different and the emphasis has always been on the multiplayer, but when a literal third of your game is practically 2 years behind the rest of the game being developed, deciding on how to reveal your product must be a pretty tricky task, I can only imagine. Next, and to me this is kind of a minor point, although it's extremely important, you'll see what I mean in just a second, but it appears that there are some cultural conflicts internally going on between the legacy Battlefield developers at DICE in Stockholm and the American leadership in EA. And to me, this is not breaking news. Like when you read the article in its totality, it's pretty much breaks down to the simple fact that DICE has a real passion for creating quality games, while EA is just focused on numbers and profits. And obviously this can ruin a game's potential, can cause trust issues and tension. Don't get me wrong, this is a big issue, but EA is kind of notorious for this, and that doesn't make it any less important. But I guess all I'm saying is I'm not surprised to read this in the article. One thing that is interesting on this topic that I'll briefly touch on, however, is that one EU developer allegedly claimed that this is the most that EA has interfered in the development of a Battlefield game when compared to previous titles, which is not a good sign. I think we all know that when a game is made purely to make profit and keep investors happy, and not to create a fun, polished, and high-quality product, the game usually suffers and does not hit its potential. Allegedly, it's causing developers to burn out, go on mental health leaves, ranging from a couple of weeks to several months. Now, look, I'm not a developer, okay? Like, these guys seemingly work the most insane hours out of any industry, so don't take this the wrong way, okay? But taking months off sounds kind of dramatic. And when I say dramatic, I'm not saying the developers are being dramatic. I mean, the claim of this article sounds a bit dramatic here. Like, who knows? But to me, when I hear several months off, I think like maternity leave or something like that. You know, like I don't generally believe you would be able to keep your job and take several months off for mental health. Now, again, I could be completely wrong, but it could be this writer just kind of stretching the truth to make the claim sound a bit more exciting, you know? I don't know, just a thought. So again, this is alarming, this is not good, but also I'm not really surprised one bit when it comes to EA at this point. And to wrap up the article, again, I highly encourage you to read it for yourself. It will be linked below in the description of the video, but there is an interesting section of this article called clearing the gates. And this section is pretty fascinating because what it seems like is happening is EA and Battlefield Studios are trying to implement stronger internal measures and checkpoints for when it comes to tracking the progress and development of the game, which on surface level sounds great, especially after the whole, ahead of schedule thing with 2042. Ironically though, it appears that although these new development checkpoints, or gates as they call them, have been implemented, they're kind of cheating the system to push the game out the doors anyways and clear gates, as they call it, when they probably shouldn't have been cleared yet, which kind of makes you think, what were the points of the gates anyways? It was all kind of a waste of time. So look, I've seen a lot of people react to this article differently. Some people think this article is kind of blown out of proportion. I've even seen some game developers from other game studios on Reddit claim that. Unfortunately, this is kind of just how game development works, and that what's happening with this new Battlefield game is nothing uniquely different or bad. While I'm also seeing others freak out and dooming the game before it's even been revealed. Now, I'm kind of in the middle. I think some of the claims in this article are possibly a bit dramatized or stretched to the limit of the truth to fit the narrative they're trying to tell with this post. However, it's hard not to see the red flags this early on and believe that there is probably some turmoil internally for the development of the new Battlefield game, especially when it's July and we have yet to see a reveal. But I'm going to leave it up to you guys. What do you think of this absolute bombshell of an article? Do you think it's blown out of proportion, or do you think Battlefield 6 might be in a world of trouble? Let me know down in the comment section below. I would love to hear it. That's going to wrap up the video. I usually say here, I hope you enjoyed the content and all that stuff, but I doubt many of us enjoy seeing an article like this when it concerns our favorite game franchise and its highly anticipated new release, but unfortunately, we are really just gonna have to wait and see what happens. If you made it this far, hit that like button and subscribe if you are new. Until the next video, my name is Sam. Hope you have a good one. Bye.